is everything hitting the fan when I have to leave for the rest of the, just a number of things all of a sudden. Okay, that'd be fine. I'll leave you a list of things that need to be addressed before next Monday. Oh, man. I'm hoping some of it's rumor.
That's where our money is at right now, in the 501c3 there at Foundation.
I will let you guys know that I'll have the agenda set today before I leave, but I may not get minutes done until next Monday, so you may not see those. You may not see packets.
You're leaving right after we get done here?
No, but mid-afternoon. Hope to be on the road. I'll get as much done as I can before I leave. The holidays thrown in the mix does not help.
Yeah.
Got 1 minute yet.
Yep. Come on in, ladies. Can we help you find something? What are you looking for?
She was just in my office, so I gave her the assistance. Yeah, I was trying to see if I can get help paying my the heating deposit.
That will have to come through Sarah.
We were downstairs just a minute ago, and I gave you the energy assistance application for the county doesn't do deposit, and all that is in my office, and so that energy assistance, you can call them, they're the county doesn't, we don't do it.
Gonna be in the office a little later on, though?
Yeah.
Till 2.
For what?
Yeah.
Till 2?
4, actually.
Till 4? Be in there all day today?
Yeah.
In and out.
Which office you gonna be at? Which office you gonna be at?
Downtown.
Okay. I've got questions.
Okay, I have 9 a.m.
You're popular today, Luke.
You got multiple offices.
Good morning. It's 9 a.m. and let's call this October. It's November 7th, Cottington County Commission meeting to order. We'll begin the meeting with the flag salute, and Commissioner Gable, would you like to lead us today?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Couple of items. If you do have a cell phone, would you please silence it or turn it off? And if you do get a call that you need to take, please step out into the hallway and take the call so as not to disrupt the meeting. Also, this meeting is being streamed live, so if you address the commission, which that's fine, but you might be reminded that you will be streamed live, so just for your own sake.
Would make a
That
motion
being
to
said,
approve
I'll
the
entertain a
agenda.
motion for, to approve the
Second.
agenda.
Second.
Oh, who had the
I
prior?
made the motion.
Motion by Hatton, second by Van Duzen. Any discussion?
Just, Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
so folks know, we have BKB. Thank you. We have BKB here under old business to talk about the agreement and what's going to be happening with the courthouse remodel during the old business section.
All right. Do you want to amend the, is that part of it?
We don't
just
need
add it
to since
that?
it's old business.
It's under old business,
Okay.
that's fine.
We're fine. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to accept the
Move to
minutes of
approve
the
the
October
minutes as
24th
emailed.
meeting.
Second?
I have a motion by Gable.
No, I
Is there a
made the
second?
motion. I made the motion, Lee seconded it.
Is there, we have a motion by Hatton, second by Gable. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Then number 4, discussion with local funeral directors regarding county indigent burial policy. And I hate to get off on the wrong foot here, but I called Sarah that handles our indigent burial, and I'm the liaison to that department, and neither one of us know what's going on. Or do you now, Sarah? I don't know what the
I had a
question is.
discussion with Tom Burns, and I assume maybe him and Sarah were in contact, so I thought maybe he had said something, but it will be later on in the meeting because Tom is in court, and I guess now it was going to be handled by Becky, so it sounds like whenever she gets here, we'll address it closer to 10.
Yeah, when I called Tom, when I saw the agenda, I started calling Friday, got hold of him Monday, he wasn't aware, and that's when, then he said he's going to try to talk to Becky, because he does have to accuse himself for conflict of interest.
I would suggest, though, I know it's Cindy's job to put it on the agenda, but it'd be nice if the department head and the liaison to that department would be informed as to what is going on. There is a proper procedure, and we would like to continue to follow that. Number 5, then.
We have other items that are put
discussion
on
with,
that everybody
Merle
knows about as
Shockert
well.
From Edward Jones. Merle is not here. I don't see Merle.
That till 9:30.
All right, so then we're going to go on to number 6, action to approve NCA additional plat, and that's Luke. And that's not NCAA, that's NCA.
That's done
Luke?
for Northern Con Ag?
Yep.
Okay, all right. And everybody should have a copy. Oh, they don't have that, okay.
I'll give you the whole.
Okay,
It's in the packet.
You have the plat.
all right. I don't have colored picture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I gave you one, right? Good morning, everyone.
All right, Luke.
Morning, Lou.
Yeah. Try to have a microphone. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Good morning again. This is the plat of NCA edition in the southeast quarter of section 17 and the northeast quarter of section 20, both in Rawville Township. It's east of the casino, Dakota Sioux Casino, 2.5 miles and 1 mile north as well from that street. Just kind of give you an idea, this is some property that was purchased by Northern Con Ag. They get a permit to mine gravel in the bulk of those 2/4 sections. However, part of the requirement was that they had to stay a prescribed distance away from some houses and also to plant some trees in portions of those 2/4 sections. And what they have done is they've negotiated with the individual that they had to stay the prescribed distance away, and that individual has offered to buy that property and maintain those trees for them, as opposed to having them also be gravel miners as well as tree maintainers. So the moral is that they're selling it to the neighbor. That's where this goofy shaped plat comes in, and the strange angles. It's going to meet, from the standpoint of the permit that was issued for the gravel pit, it'll meet the requirements there. They'll still be required to have the trees in there. It's just that someone else is going to be maintaining them. The only thing that we had to do, we did have to have a letter of assurance that says that since this is a 9.67 acre parcel and a 2.33 acre parcel, they've signed an agreement saying they understand there's no residential building rights with it as it sits today.
I'll move to approve that plat. We did approve it at the Planning and Zoning Board, and it happens to be in my backyard. I live right there, and so I'm very familiar with what's going on, and I have no issue with it. The neighbors don't either. In fact, it's good. It's good. It's a good deal for us.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by myself, a second by Lee Gable. Any discussion?
Luke, Ann had a question when she was looking this over. Does a letter of understanding need to be filed with her also? Or does it come back to you? Because she's gonna need funds for that, but,
That'll be they'll need to pay a separate
okay,
fee for that,
Okay.
for that letter of understanding, yeah.
all right, I'll let her know that she'll have to, somebody will have to contact
Yeah,
her. Okay,
and I can,
okay.
is that actually, before I ask that, is that on the road, is that on the right way?
The letter of understanding?
Sorry. Yeah, they'll need a separate.
Okay.
payment with that.
All right, so we have
All
a
right.
motion and a second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Luke.
I'd just make you aware as well, Board, sorry to jump in line on something here, but I'd just make you aware, there was a vacation right-of-way recommended 2 months ago out of the Planning Commission. It was in Compesca Village, however, the Planning Commission wanted to hear from the township before it was put on any agendas here at the commission. We did hear from the township, and so I'm just letting you know to expect in a couple of weeks that we'll be hearing that.
Thank you, Luke. Have a good day. We'll talk to you later. We'll bring all of our problems to you later on. All right, let's back up to item number 5. Mr. Shocker Deshiro Merrill, come up, come forward, introduce yourself, and you're on.
Mr. Chairman, we have to wait till 9:30. Do we need to wait till 9:30? Because
No,
it's
no,
okay.
that was just an approximate time. Are you waiting for anybody, Merle?
No.
Okay, all right, if you're ready to go.
Want to
then we
use the
can get
mic? I know you got a good boisterous voice, but Don likes to record, so thank you.
Okay, my name is Merle Shockert. I am with Edward Jones. I have taken care of the 457 plan, which is a supplemental plan for the county for approximately 11 years. We started doing this in 2006. Lord Abbott is the company that we have used in the past. Okay, things have changed a lot in our forum for the last year and a half. April of 2016, the government, the Department of Labor, came out with new rules as far as retirement accounts go. And that was mainly to deal with IRAs, a little bit to do with 401ks and 403bs. As of a year ago, we had looked at it, and there wasn't going to be any changes to the 457, so I didn't really worry about that. Then April of this year, IRAs kind of changed as far as we have to become fiduciaries. And as of about 2 months ago, I got laid down that we could not stay with the Lord Abbott plan on the 457 the way it was. We have to have a TPA now, which is a third-party administrator, which, as you see, that is the Gold Leaf. That is the company that would actually be the TPA on the plan. And Lord Abbott is not one of our vendors that we can keep. So I actually brought you John Hancock is a company that I'm looking at going with. I looked at a couple different companies. They are the cheapest to use from a standpoint of expenses. The biggest difference between what we had before and what we will be looking at going forward is Lord Abbott was set up that it was like a straight mutual fund where you paid an upfront sales charge on it, no cost to get out of it, with expenses running around that 1% range. We are at the break point right now that we are paying 2.95, the employees are, on an upfront cost with, like I said, that 1% expense on an annual basis after that. With the new plan, if you look through it, on the proposal on the John Hancock, on the second page, it basically tells you that the expense on it would be 1.78% is what the cost is. There's no cost on the upfront side. There's no cost on the back end side. It's more like a 401k now. And so then you just pay the annual expenses of the 1.78. The biggest reason why we're doing the switch is because I can no longer take care of the Lord Abbott after December 31st. And so that's why we're looking at doing a change to this new plan. The good thing about it is it does have a TPA, which will kind of keep track of things a little bit better. So if there's any problems, they find the problems, they take care of them. The expenses, well, right now, basically what we have in the plan is roughly about $430,000, which right now with reoccurring, we put in about $84,000 a year. The way you guys have it set up is that if you put in $20, they match 10, 30, 20, 30, 15, 40, 20, 50, 25. You go up to 60.
We only have three.
Is it?
We only have three breakdowns, yeah.
Okay, it must be the 2010.
Yeah.
You tell me.
Let me
I
look.
know it's half of what it is. I believe 50, 25 is the max.
Shoot, I should have looked somewhere else. Oops.
But basically, 84,000 is what we roughly put in. We have 60 employees that participated and are roughly in that ballpark. So there is a good participation.
Yeah.
I believe it's a good thing for the employees to have.
And it rolls over, that all rolls over.
We will basically, I'll have to meet with all 60 employees and we will roll over into the new plan is what
Yeah.
will happen.
It's in our personnel policy is where it's at.
The actual expenses is the 1.64. The 0.14 is the expenses for the TPA to basically take care of the stuff. So there is no cost to the county per se. It's all coming out of the expenses with the employees.
Is that part of the 178?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So how long were we with the Lord Abbott? This predates me.
It started in September of 2006.
Okay.
So we've had it for 11 years.
And it has served the purpose well.
Yes, it's done fine. Everybody's been happy with it as far as I know. And it gives the employees other options for extra retirement.
And you can draw out of that. You don't have to die to get it. That's one nice thing, right?
Correct. Basically, to draw out of it normally, though, is you either have to separate from service or retire. Basically those things. I believe that they can do it if they have a medical expense or some of those extras like
A
that.
hardship.
but
All right, so the county, if the employee contributes $50 or more, county matches 25. 40 or more, $20. 30 or more, $15. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Merle? All right, so what, Cindy, you can
We
help.
will need action to authorize Merle to meet with employees and to switch from Lord Abbott to John Hancock. Correct? Does that
Yes.
sound?
We'll
okay.
need board action to do that.
Yes,
So I'll
and-
entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion by Commissioner Van Duzen, a second by Commissioner Gable. Any more discussion? Any more questions for Merle? We got him on a
So
hot
at
seat.
this time, if any employee chooses not to participate, they have the option of ending their,
Yes.
Opting out.
yeah.
So this will be done by the end of the year.
Yes.
Okay, and so we'll start the new year on the new plan.
Yes.
Just for clarification.
Yep.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Merle.
Thank you, Merle.
Appreciate your work for
Thank
us.
you.
Okay, we have one of the funeral directors here, Maury. We're going to probably, you were scheduled up here quite a ways, but we're waiting for Tom Burns, and Tom is in court. So it'll probably be a little bit later. Anybody have any idea?
It's Becky.
Well, Becky, we're going to, after 10?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, she is in drug court this
Yeah.
morning, and she said
Okay.
as soon as she's able to get out, she would be here.
So Maury, if you want to hang around that long, or whatever you wish. You get educated here, huh? All right, all right. Okay, let's go on then. Let's go to our monthly reports. Jody, Extension, let's start out with you. Jody's just coming off of a very successful awards day last Sunday. That's very well done. Jody, congratulations.
Thanks. We just had our recognition event, as like you said, on Sunday. We recognize members, leaders, and volunteers at this each year. I just brought my alumni. We gave to Penny Teen and Scott Huck, who help us each year. Our Friends of 4-H was Zesto Drive-In, who helped us with our malt wagon each year. And then Farm Country Co-op is one of our sponsors for our premium sale. And then our meritorious service went to Great Western Bank, as they help us with our premium sale each year. We volunteer for that. And they also help us with our trust fund, and at that bank also is our guide there. So I was totally surprised. He asked me about my award. At the end, I said it wasn't part of the script, and so they gave me a nice award at the end, gave me a necklace. So it was really nice and brought me to tears. So anyway, Clover Bud started at Watertown and Florence. We have Waverly and Henry this week also, so we're just getting started with those little kids. I'm taking a Strengthening Families program through Iowa State University. It just got moved to January now instead of November because of their training dates, so that will be held in Sioux Falls for 3 days. But it's kind of getting a retraining. They've kind of redone their curriculum a little bit, and this is part of a grant to try and touch kids and try and reach some of them with opioids also. And then I'm part of the Junior Achievement, and this month I'll be at McKinley School with 3rd graders with Junior Achievement. And then just a reminder that Optimist Club Winter Wonderland, we're working on that, and that's going to start after Thanksgiving. So.
Good.
I see that there's a lot of displays already popping up. So
Yeah.
It's good out there.
Lots of volunteer hours out there too.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Anything else for?
Thanks, Jody.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Jody. Have a good day. And again, congratulations on your award, and it's really enjoyable. You know, you sit and listen to the news and all the bad stuff that goes on, and then you go to an event like that and you see all these youngsters receiving awards for all of their projects and efforts that they've done. And I sat across the table from a young lady that was telling me all of the projects she's going to have in 2018, next year already. She's already excited. And some of them really get into it, and that's great. Veteran Service. Al, good morning, Al.
Good morning.
Big week this week.
Midweek this week. Month of October, we had 91 walk-in/appointments. We had 4 trips of 9 riders to Sioux Falls. We had 3 home visits. The 14th of October, we celebrated the 147th Field Artillery 100th anniversary out at the Readiness Center and at the VFW. Had a great turnout. Really good to see a lot of the old guys. As Myron was saying, we have Veterans Day this Saturday at 10:30 at the Cottagly County Extension Complex. This year's guest speaker is Lieutenant Governor Matt Michaels, a Navy veteran, and we'll have the Watertown Band performing along with the Glacial Lakes Harmonizers. And this Thursday, I have been asked to speak in front of the Optimist Club, so it's going to be a busy week.
Good. Any questions for Al?
No, since Mr. Chairman, since Al's here, we're just we had we're having a discussion with the City Park and Rec about using some of the auditorium offices that are in the front of the auditorium. They used to be Park and Rec offices, but for Al and for the welfare office. So that, just to let everybody know, that discussion's in progress, and Commissioner Hanton and I are going to be meeting with the Park and Rec folks on Thursday, along with Milo, to talk about a lease agreement. So it's looking. I'll tell you more as it comes, but it looks basically that they're asking us to cover utilities, and that's basically it. So it looks very reasonable and looks like it'll work.
We've already ordered all brand new furniture, Lee, so it's got.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to spend yesterday afternoon at the Veterans Clinic in Sioux Falls, or the Veterans Hospital, and the Veterans Service found me after 47 years, and they're trying to get caught up, and so I've been going to appointments about every day, and they're taking good care of me. But I'm just amazed at how many people are involved or are taking advantage of that. It's a very, very busy place, and it's good to see that you know, that, that is happening. So, we appreciate all you do, Al. Thank you very much. All right,
Thanks, Al.
we got the weed guy, Steve, weed man.
You got this, Stan.
Good morning.
Morning, Steve.
Morning, Steve.
Are you going to put anything on the screen? Give us a lesson in weeds? We're getting,
We could. Yeah,
okay.
I do have some stuff you want to put up.
if you want to.
Let's see if we can connect. We on, right?
We're on.
Okay.
Which one do you want? Is it on the TV? Which one did I go to?
Go back. I don't remember now. You know, we've only done it a couple times, so
Well, if you don't,
it takes about 10 times to learn.
Whatever you spray.
Never mind. We'll
Okay.
just.
never mind.
Yeah, we'll wing it. We got to get used to this programming like this, right? All right. As of this fall, we finished on October 24th of our spraying. I attended the. I guess I'll give you some stats. Why don't we do that? All right. For total of the year of spraying, we had a total of 669 and a half man hours. 4,554 hours or miles sprayed. 1,412 and a quarter miles or gallons, excuse me, of 2,4-D. 377 and 3/4 gallons of Tordon used. Nearly 13 gallons of glyphosate used. 8 1/4 gallons of Milestone. And a half a gallon of Transline.
Remind me, what's Transline?
Transline is actually Stinger.
Okay.
But Transline is used more in roadside.
Okay.
Stinger is used dedicated for like in trees.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Total billed out this year so far is $55,531.43.
And what are the receipts?
Out of that, there's $2,362.74 in the West Nile of bogging mosquitoes. Currently-
That 2,300 is included in the 55,000?
Yes.
And that's for West Nile?
Yeah.
Okay.
So far, all the West Nile ones have been received. Currently, as of last week Friday, there should be $15,602.65 received. Received of
Not left,
spraying.
okay.
Yep. I did drop off a couple today again.
Okay.
So about $40,000 in accounts receivable, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, on October 30th, attended the district weed board meeting in Stratford. Tom and I attended. There's approximately 50 people. Speakers were Ron Mooring, spoke about 2 requests going to the commission this next spring to put on the state noxious list of wormwood sage and yellow-toed flax. There was discussion on those in the group, and so we had on that. Right now, yellow-toed flax might be a difficult one because it does get into lawns, and to control it in lawns is a difficult task. SDSU is doing research on that right now, this past fall on it. So far, Trimec products that usually used in lawns does not affect it. So they're going to keep doing studies on that for control. Also, he had talked about there is a new invasive grass that's in the right-of-way north of Mitchell. They discovered this past year. I didn't get the whole total name, but it's kind of like a bluegrass, but it's a yellow grass. It's invasive in Nebraska, so it must be somehow shipped and crept up into the right-of-ways there. Paul Johnson gave on modes of action of chemicals, but which this all led into talk about the dicamba and the dicamba beans. And there are going to be some changes coming through on the spraying and application of the dicamba used in beans. Right now they're still working on things on that. Also, Brenda talked about the qualification of all the grants and the upcoming grants. She did turn around and talk a little bit about dicamba application also. And then also that she had brought up was she's also involved with the pollinators and the bee. She's in charge of those. Well, there is a likelihood that the monarch butterfly will probably be put on the endangered species list, which will change the great dynamics of all the spraying and insecticide applications. So in that preparation, it's really stressed to do just spot spraying noxious weeds only in the right-of-ways. So.
I read an interesting article the other day about the monarch. They said that they're still, well, maybe not, this was about a week or 10 days ago, they were still up in Canada, and normally by now they're quite a ways south of here. And they say if the air temperature drops below 50, they can't fly. Their joints in their wings don't function, and they're concerned about them getting trapped up in Canada. Because normally, we always have this flush of monarch butterflies that come through here. The ones that we thought were monarch butterflies were not.
Were not.
No, they were not.
No, they were not.
Fooled a lot of us.
Yes, it did. A lot of people, there's a lot of them, but it's not.
And I haven't heard anything since whether they got out of there or not.
I couldn't tell you. I do know that here of Sunday and stuff like that, there's some migration. I seen the first flock of snows and blues. It was a small flock heading south, but probably nothing of great numbers yet.
So we may still get them.
We may still get
Some
them.
might come through.
Also, going on with the West Nile, attended the mosquito conference in Aberdeen. As of this year, there were 70 human cases in South Dakota reported to the Department of Health, 4 deaths, 4 human cases in Cottington County, and there was also 2 red-tailed hawks that were also determined with West Nile and Cottington County that was turned into the Department of Health. Talked about the what was discussed there was the resistance of applications and so of mosquitoes becoming resistant to the product because most insecticides there's only one basic product. So they were doing studies around the state and agricultural areas to see if there is resistancy building up in the mosquitoes. Still yet to, they showed some resistance, but there was only 1 year study done on it. They'd have to be more years of study to really determine that. Also there was trapping conducted in and near Sioux Falls area for the Zika carrying mosquito. Nothing was found down there. Also the number of cases of Zika were considerably down this past year. I believe, if I remember right, like 200 and some cases was reported compared to thousands or so that was from the year before. We'll be attending the Safety and Loss Conference this coming week with Jim, Milo, and Rick. And we'll be attending that tomorrow and Thursday. Also, Van Dees, the end of the year, will be held in Sioux Falls on December 5th. stuff. I do have a travel request for next week for that. Also, is right now planning for doing a training session for our data loggers, getting that coordinated. It looks like it might be in December. Don't have a final date on that exactly. So far, I believe there is like 6 counties that are right now involved and going to do this, going to this training. So that there might be more. We don't really know for sure. So. And then also, and so we have on the budget, on the deal for a 1999 Chevy truck.
That's item number 8 on the agenda. Yeah, go ahead, Steve. We'll take care of it right now.
All right. And currently, right now, what was on it was $16,550, plus there's the fees and so that, dealership fees and so that, which would come to $17,249. This is probably where it'd be nice having the TV, because I do have some photographs of that truck.
What was the year again?
It's a 1999. Granted, it is a little bit, comment made of an older truck.
Hardly has any miles on it, though.
But it only has less than 20,000 miles on this truck. It looks in really excellent shape.
Commissioner Waterman has seen pictures of it, and I've seen pictures of it. And it looks like a new truck.
Well, it does look like a new truck, Mr. Chairman. That is right. And to find something with that age, with that many miles on, is almost phenomenal.
You can scroll.
It's also got a box on it, an aluminum box, with 2 doors, one on the side and one on the back, with a lift gate. And although we might not have a lift gate need, the side door for storage and retrieval of items from that box would be extremely handy. It's similar to the style of truck we have now, so there'd be less changes that would have to be made, and
no framework will need to be done.
No framework will have to be done. We should be able to mount the bumper that we have on our original truck right now with the boom, and so we had to just transfer.
Where is this truck being purchased from?
It is in Denver, actually Wheat Ridge, Colorado, which is just a suburb of.
In your packet, there should be a sheet.
Okay.
Yep.
A white sheet, not a green sheet, a white sheet with everything on it.
Wheat Ridge, okay.
I make a motion to go ahead and authorize this purchase.
All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Gable, second by Waterman. Any discussion? Sure you don't want to see it? You may have to drive it.
No, I'm
When
fine.
we send you out there, you know which truck to get into. So.
That's all right.
it's
We
the
have a
white
motion.
one, Cindy.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? I think the discussion and I don't know if we need to wait till later, but Commissioner Waterman and Steve, and he's contacted me as far as picking it up or getting it. And we had talked one time maybe about sending 2 people out there. Mr. Sutton had volunteered, but I think plans have changed a little bit now. And my understanding is, Steve, is that you will board the airline out of Watertown, and who gets the $25 Watertown bucks? That's what I'm wondering. That's the big issue here now.
You can go see an Avalanche or a Nuggets game while you're out there too.
It can go towards the Christmas potluck for all the employees.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
But anyway, he's got to take the flight out to Denver, and then they'll pick him up, and then he'll head back, and we're going to try to double up. And Milo is sitting back here. Milo wants to buy some toy out in Rapid City or something, and maybe he can come to Rapid City and pick it up or whatever. And that's when that lift will be nice.
Right.
Whenever you pick that parcel up, that Milo's
And
trying.
if not, they do have forklifts to load. They also have loading docks and stuff
Sure.
like that, so that's no big deal.
So that's the plan as far as getting it back to Cottington County. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right, and he does have a travel request in. I think Jim has one in, and we will probably void the one that Jim has in and honor Steve's. All right, enough discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Go get us a truck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
What was the model for that? Chevy.
All right, Sarah, Welfare Department.
Morning, sir.
Sarah. He can have my sheet.
No, he wants the truck specs.
Oh, he can have my truck. He can have my truck sheet. Oops.
It's just one sheet. No. Unless you can follow.
There you go.
Okay, just, this is the report for September in Cottington County. We had 9 medical. The cost was $274, and that was for a final health insurance premium. The individual has moved out of the county. The savings that you see for this was all but about $1,800 was for a medical claim back in 2008 and 2009. Just bring that up because sometimes they take a long time before we get them dismissed. They were dismissed in the court. We had 10 housing, cost of $350 there to highlight the prescription. Caremark, we had 36 individuals with the savings to the county, a little bit over $3,000. We had 1 burial that was approved. We had 3 inquiries. Utility, we had 4, mostly just energy assistance. We're getting people on that program, and that kind of takes care of that. Utility company was really worked with us. The program didn't start till October 1st. So on this pace, it was just getting them in, and they said as soon as October 1st, they would go back. And so that really saved us a lot of money holding them off. October, just the stepping up highlights, is mostly just working on with the sequential intercept mapping from the August meeting, just working on the review and finalize the draft report. On the back page for you guys is just some of the data that we had collected. I couldn't remember if I shared that. I know I shared it with the stepping up, but I couldn't remember if I shared it with the board.
It's interesting data either way.
Yeah, it encompasses people that have mental health, substance abuse, or developmentally disabled. So it's all of them. It tells you the number of bookings and kind of the nature charges and the levels. Something to note out is we notice people who have a mental health or substance use issue, they have 2.39 arrest bookings per person, and a person without has 1.32. The average length of stay is probably where we saw our biggest disparity is 14.15 for somebody that has mental health, substance use, or developmentally disabled, and then 6.28. Just to point out on the bottom, something very significant is we had 2 people that were held for forensic review. And if you look at that, their length of stay for one was 186 days, and for another it was 301 days. And that was some of what we did at the task force with Gilbertson, the mental health task force, is we implemented a law that forensic review needs to be done in 21 days. And the reason for that is if they're not competent to stand trial, they need to get to treatment to become competent if they can or make that determination. These are people that are sitting there waiting for those competency evaluations. So hopefully, hopefully that'll help.
Mr. Chairman, was that in 1183, or was that a recommendation from the Mental Health Task Force?
That was in the Mental Health Task Force created House Bill 1183, and yes, that was implemented, passed by legislation. It's 21 days.
And the bottom line is it tied up one of our beds in our jail for that many days.
Yeah, that's significant. It's small numbers, only 2, but if you look at the total numbers,
2 beds.
Yeah, 2 beds, but it's 486.
A lot of days.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge is the people that are able to do it, I think, is where some of the trouble is coming into.
Yeah, and that was part of House Bill 1183. We did switch the level because this is just at the moment. This isn't like the insanity pleas or guilty, those types of defenses. This is just at the moment. If they weren't competent at the moment, we send them to get that treatment so then they can move forward on their trial. And then, so it did reduce the level of who can perform those, and that's, they brought in psychiatrists and all these people from New York and that to talk about who can do that. So that was changed, and then the courts systems will get a list of who can perform those. So that was additional. We addressed that issue in those meetings.
Since I am now a member on the executive board for the commissioners, there is also some money that will be coming forward that can also maybe be utilized if you're not going to do the use the pool, that you might be able to tap into some of those funds to have that done.
probably one of the things that, it's unfortunate that unfortunate things have to happen before people wake up or see the light or understand, but the issues that occurred in our national news this past week with the church killings, and apparently it sounds like it's very apparent that that individual had some mental issues, and hopefully on a national basis, people will understand that we need to get these things under control. We spend a lot of time talking about drugs, and drugs is certainly an issue, but mental capabilities is another issue. And plugging the computer into the monitor is another issue, right?
There's HDMI on the side,
I don't have anything.
right in front of it.
No, it's different shade, it's a slightly different HDMI.
We've always used this one, did you change the,
No?
Wasn't there an adapter?
There was, yeah.
did we lose our adapter?
I don't know.
Well, we gotta look at the adapter.
I'll look at my adapter.
Actually, do you have, you can Google.
You Google that,
You
Steve.
can Google cast it
Work on
if you have a,
You want me just to hold it in your computer? I'm
I
pretty,
got copies, it just, okay. I knew just in case, but I've always hooked it up to you before, so I'm not sure what changed. With the sequential intercept mapping and stuff, we had started doing monthly reports on different things the office does, and so we're getting back to that. Collecting that data was significant. This was, when I met with you, Troy and Brenda, before, you'd asked, and this has been a long time coming on this, but I had to put this aside because of the time frame of those other things with that.
No, I looked.
Basically, just a review. I might make sure I follow my computer as well in case I've made changes since I printed this off. Do you guys ever do that, last minute changes?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so one of the things Cottington County does is care of,
you might, Sarah, start over again. What are we talking about here?
Yes.
Let's start over.
okay, so one of the things we do is the Cottington County is under care of poor is the Cottington County burials. That is something that this office takes care of. Things that basically, just a kind of a synopsis, because there's been times people have asked different questions to me. Things that are allowed or required, and on your sheet the required are in red, by the county is, we are required to employ a funeral director for unclaimed bodies, and we do have those. We've had a few of those. A casket or urn is required, an outside container, conduct funeral services, establish a sum for funeral director for merchandise and services rendered. The rest are allowed, which is may contract for burial space and cemetery services. What we do is the cemetery offers the plots for free. We pay for the opening and closing of the graves. It's about 50% then on that. Payment of expense by county of residence, that is as a requirement. So sometimes what you'll see is we will pay to another county because a nursing home is not a residence, and a lot of times if someone's poor, last 2 years ago we had somebody that was passed away in Chamberlain in the nursing home, was poor, but they just get buried there. So sometimes you guys have asked, why are we getting funeral home calls from other directors? The nursing home isn't a residency. If it's an unclaimed body, it's where the death occurred. So we have had that happen on that. So veterans' expenses are paid under the statute 33A-5. Burials are approved prior to the funeral, and that does change kind of how the funeral homes provide those services on that. Things the county.
I have a question right there.
Yes.
I'm a veteran.
Yes.
All right. Believe it or not, I do plan on dying eventually. I will get buried in the military cemetery at Sturgis. It's a national cemetery out there. I got just thinking about this the other day. I talked to somebody, in fact, it's a relative of mine that I stop and visit him all the time when I'm out there, and I get to do all the talking. But get him out there, or get me out there. Let's say I'm indigent. Does the county pay, I think it's, Maury's sitting here, what is it, $1,000 to transport a body from here to the National Cemetery? What is it?
Cottington County, we don't pay for the transport if you choose to get buried outside. And actually, Al or Peggy could talk to if they're buried at that national cemetery. There's more costs or more benefits, I believe, for that. But no, Cottington County doesn't pay for someone chooses to go outside of the county. We do look at the veterans. If you're aware of, the state pays, which we're not required to, but we do. But the state pays $100 for indigent. Okay, so we will deduct that from what we have, and if there's any pension allowed for costs of services.
In other words, county-wise, I'll get a free ride, but there is no free ride. Somebody will be picking it up. The state.
Yeah.
You get services out there as far as free range base, tree fall.
Yeah.
But the transportation, currently Cottington County is one of the few in our state that does not reimburse even at the state rate.
And that was my question. That's exactly where I was headed.
Yeah, we're one of the few counties that does not have a rate of mileage reimbursement.
I would look up other policies. I'm not sure if that's accurate. I'd have to look into that, but we do have in our policies that we don't pay for outside of the county on choices on that. Because our cemetery here does offer veterans separate on that as well.
And then we go one step further, and then the spouse also can be buried out there at no cost. But there again, I'm sure that the expenses, transportation, would they follow suit, or would that be open up another bag of worms? Doug, are you paying attention? That's where we're going, right?
Yeah, our policy.
Oh yeah, that'd be better yet.
Yeah, as our current policy stands, we do not pay for transportation outside of the county.
Okay.
So that would apply to anybody that would be approved. Yes, I haven't had a request that I recall for out in Spearfish that's been indigent. I would have to pull and look, but I don't recall a request for that.
All right, good. Thank you.
So then we go on to things that the county cannot do. We cannot place bids with funeral homes. I know sometimes I've been asked that, but we're not allowed to do that. We cannot select disposition of claimed bodies. So if someone has signed and claimed that body, we cannot determine whether it's a burial or cremation. We cannot unclaim, but we cannot unclaimed. We cannot select the funeral director of claimed bodies. The county can select on unclaimed, but we cannot unclaimed. We cannot balance, bill, or supplement. We were taught that in our workshops and stuff. There was a funeral director out West River who lost his license for doing that. So we do, for that reason. We also, in our policies, we deduct any assets, money paid, or benefits. Like we talked about veteran benefit, if there's that $100, we deduct that. If the family doesn't receive that, is denied that, and they give us a receipt that didn't come, then we'll put that. So we always talk, if it's a veteran, we talk to Veteran Service Office, find out what they believe the benefit. Peggy's been on the spot 100% every time. But if they don't, that isn't received, but it's the family's responsibility at that time then to let us know that was denied or it was a lower amount. Like I said, Peggy's been right on the spot. So we take a look at where we were in 2006 by applying policies as written. Any person below 300% federal poverty level was eligible. That resulted in our costs in 2016 in Cottington County. And if you take a look at that on your graph, as you can see, Cottington County had the second highest expense rate statewide. We were only one below Minnehaha, and not by much.
Can you say the factor again that caused that? You said
it was our policies. Our policy at that time in 2006 was that any person below 300% federally poverty level was eligible. And like I said, as you can see, Cottington County was the second highest in the state for our burials. So what we identified then at that time was a problem, that we had excessive burial expenses. We'd expect that trend to increase. So as a response, we we reviewed policies, and it was interesting as I began reviewing policies at that time, we actually had a burial that we approved. And then following when we called the funeral director at that time, they were very upset. They called me back and asked us why did we approve that, because the individual was a single individual, but he was part of a family in another county to where the funeral took place, and they had the ability to play. They had assets. He might look poor on paper, but because it was a family farm, it wasn't in their name. He said these guys have a lot of money. It really was this guy's money as well. It was a corporation that their farm was under. He was very upset because he said, now you've negatively impacted my business. I would have been able to get full rate on this burial, and now I've had to pay. I'm going to not get the profit. So that's something that was brought to my attention that we need to take into consideration as we move forward, that potential. So that's happened to take while we were reviewing policies. I also inquired from other counties, how do you do this? How do you guys handle this? And we, especially like Brown, Brookings, we did ask Minnehaha as well, because they tend to have more policies in place. We applied the statutes within 2813.11, and that talks about who's responsible. And then we also, on the recommendation of the state's attorney, brought forth SDCL 342616. At that time, we just defined next of kin as adult children, parents, siblings, and grandparents. But just to let you know, there were times where we would have an appointment scheduled for a funeral application, and in the interim, I would get a call from the funeral director saying, hey, we can cancel that. An aunt or friend stepped up to pay. You know, what we found is there are people that when a little bit of that, I guess, pressure is put on there, they will step up. If you let someone apply before they're even deceased, nobody actually takes a look and stuff. So through experience, we had learned that as well. So we did revise and we approved new policies. And so what that resulted in, the first graph that you had is a result of the expense trends just for Cottington County. Okay, that's just what it did to the expenses in Cottington County. And then your next graph is the 2010 through 2016 county expenditures. We looked at comparable counties, and we compared with 8 counties closest to our population size, which varies between the 3rd and 12th largest counties in South Dakota. Cottington County is the 6th largest. The counties in green below are just our neighboring counties, just to give you a comparison too. And so then we put that into a graph, and Cottington County is the yellow line. And as you can kind of tell, in 2010 we were the highest amongst the comparable counties, but otherwise the fluctuation is with any county, just so that you know that too, because you can kind of see like Brown County had a high year, 1, 2. But 2012 to 2015, we were the 2nd or 3rd highest among those counties. We're just in line with the other comparable counties. Your next graph just is a different view of it, and Cottington County is the one in the purple lines. Just kind of to gives you an idea where we're at amongst. I did reduce the graphs down to 4 because otherwise it was too busy. If you want me to add the graphs with all 8, I sure can do that for you. I just thought it was hard to see it. But we looked at Lincoln, Brown, Brookings, Cottington, and Lawrence. They're the closest to our population. Well, Lincoln not anymore, but. So then we pulled the data from, I shouldn't say, Julie and Angela pulled the data. 2016, we had six that applied and approved, 1 unclaimed body approved, 5 that we referred and chose not to apply, 1 application denied, 7 inquiries. And denials are given the process to appeal. When you send out the notice with them, they're given a process to appeal. We have not had a client appeal at this time.
They're dead. They can't appeal.
No, they're not. But the family members. Yes, that's true. Yeah, we make it difficult.
We did have
we make that was the funeral. That wasn't the client.
Yeah, I know.
The client did
just
not
so
appeal.
people understand.
Yeah.
the guy that they buried, he didn't have a chance.
Actually, one time I gave a presentation and they laughed at me because they said you can't apply it till you're deceased.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so just to note, if all of these individuals had next of kin, every one of them had siblings. Two of the inquiries, just to be aware of, one was a past funeral. They have to be prior approved. They're handled differently. And one was not a Cottington County resident. I did not know that until after when they contacted it, they made it sound like they were, and then when we did the application, they were not. So just to be aware, if you choose to change the policies, you need to understand that all of these would qualify. In other words, those who chose not to apply, denied, or inquiries would be eligible. So you would need to increase the budget, and that does not account for the anticipated additional referrals that would be expected. So in 2016, that would have been an additional, minimum at least additional $50,000 to the budget. So then we take a look at 2017. Up through October 31st. We had 3 applied and approved, 1 unclaimed body, 4 referred, chose not to apply, 2 applications denied, 4 inquiries, all that had next of kin. So in 2017, to date, that'd be about 10 more applications, so that'd be a cost of about $46,000 to the county. And just keeping in mind, too, that every funeral that the county pays for, a lot of times, like, we'll have someone stop in. They're not from around here. Their deceased individual brother is or sister. And just in that conversation, like, we had one this last month where the guy came in. The funeral director had just had surgery, heart surgery, so had just said, go talk to Sarah first. And at that time, we explained the statutes of next of kin, and he even said, he says, oh, well, then I'm not going to be eligible. He is retired, but he says, my retirement, just my one pension alone, is $90,000 a year. And so, he most of the time, most of the people, they don't argue. They just say, yeah, I understand. Okay, we're not going to. I would not have been able to. I would have had to take that application. It wasn't somebody unwilling or wanting to on that to do that. Those would be ones that we would take, but now keep in mind also that when we're doing that, every time we do that, then that funeral home is taking a lesser rate. So that you can have sometimes you need to consider those unintended consequences of potentially negatively impacting the business for the funeral home. I know that there's been discussion about those that aren't paid. These are ones that are signed contracts. It would be my recommendation that the funeral home use the means they have available to them to collect. If the county would like to supplement the local funeral homes, my suggestion is that you would do it if there's a risk of not having the service and not being provided, and also then that the county just offers an annual lump sum. Because otherwise what we're doing is we're not necessarily keeping it under indigent care of poor. So if you guys are wanting to do that, that would be my recommendation of how to supplement that at that time on those. Otherwise, for the funeral directors to go through their available procedures that they have on these signed contracts. And if they're not claimed, the county picks those up. We do take those. Those are a lot fewer than the ones that, like I said, those 2 years, there's been 2, and actually, probably if we looked back all years, there's probably been maybe a total of 4 that are truly unclaimed. So majority of them are not unclaimed. Majority that are approved do have family. We don't look at more than 2 to 5% of the family's income to be able to pay within 2 to 3 years back at the county rate. So that was the information I had on that. So.
And I know Maury's here, Maury with White and Comas, but and the procedure, and at this point in time, I think that it has worked quite well. And this I got in email one day, burial instructions for Myron, and that kind of wakes you up. That's my burial instructions. And anyway, the first contact would be if you have someone that comes in and they think they qualify, the first contact would be with the funeral home, and then the next contact would be for the funeral home to get a hold of either Sarah or myself. That would be the proper protocol. I don't have all the answers, but I have a lot of information and the procedures that we need to go through step by step. Sarah, of course, knows it inside and out.
We always have to make sure that we're consistent and fair so that we don't get a discrimination lawsuit.
I think that's the most important thing, is that we are consistent and that we are fair, so everybody is treated in the same way. I noted on my other thing, we wonder some of Sarah's responsibilities. When you're sitting there at that table in the funeral home with that family, well, I guess bottom line is you got to call a spade, and sometimes you know that the family can afford. And in my case, I know a lot of people in Cudahy County, and they need to step up and man up and bury their next of kin. That's all it is. And if they could get out of it, they'll try any way they can, possibly. On my sheet, I also happen to notice that the one area that we may have here that we haven't touched on would be Native American burials. And that's another issue that we deal with occasionally. And that has to be handled separately or individually, too.
Yeah, we have to be very careful because we have to respect their wishes. And normally the tribe will pick them up. We did have one tribe that didn't want to, but it's kind of a scary deal because you don't want to have a lawsuit that you mistreated that tribal member against their culture, but yet we don't have the ability to do that culture. So you do walk very, very carefully around that and make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's. I've only had one. Typically the Native Americans will take claim regardless, but we did have one that wouldn't. Yeah.
The other thing that doesn't bother me, but that does bother me, I wouldn't be talking about it, is that I know a number of years ago when I first started working with Sarah on this, I felt that the county should be responsible for, the least cost method of burying that individual, which would be cremation. And Maury can probably chime in here. I think cremation now has, you as well, cremation now has become a little bit more popular. I don't know if that's a good word to put on that, but I think we're finding that there are more cremations now than 5 years ago, right? Right. And that's something that I wish that we had that option, but we don't.
We do for unclaimed bodies.
For unclaimed bodies.
Bodies, we have that option. We can donate them down to Vermilion, which usually by the time, if they're unclaimed, by the time we get notice, it's too late. If they're claimed, we do not have the option of disposition. So we're not making that option.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to get a drink of water, so don't think I just...
All right. Don't have a drink of coffee because it's making... No, it's good coffee. Commissioner Gable made the military coffee this morning. And so, number 9, action to approve notice to bidders for the ag roofing project. We have some shingles destroyed in a hailstorm. Milo has got some information for us. There is a notice in your packet in reference to that. There's 2 or 3 pages, if you wish. I did have an opportunity to read through it, Milo, so go ahead, share with us.
This request is permission to advertise for bids. I just labeled it the Ag Building re-roofing project. This is in response to our hailstorm. We have significant damage throughout the entire complex out there. We have already received an insurance check that's sitting here waiting for us to use. The project itself is going to include 5 not separate buildings, but 5 areas out there. It would include the SDSU building, which would be the newest structure, calling for EPS insulation and a flute fill on that roof with wood fiber insulation on top of that. The entire project would be using a 60 mil EPDM adhered system with 24 gauge pre-finished metal. So the structures we would be working on would be the SDSU building, number 2, the echo chamber / meeting room building. That's currently the one that is shingled. Number 3, the North Expo building. number 4, the South Expo building, and number 5, the livestock barn / sale ring. I talked with Cindy, she checked with our state auditors, how to best proceed doing this. And we can't split it up into 5 individual projects because essentially it's all one project. So that leads us to where we're at now, where we have to advertise for bids.
You didn't mention anything about the actual extension office, that area, but is that part of building 1?
No, that area already has the EPDM system on it. That area was not damaged.
It wasn't?
No. Basically, it had rubber and it bounced off.
Okay.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the notice to bidders.
We have a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Gable to authorize me to sign the notice to bidders. Any more discussion? Yes, Tony?
Yeah, we just did a project on our highway department, and Rick was very, very happy with the 90 mil or the thicker thing that they put up, and the construction job people that put it up were kind of impressed too. And it wouldn't cost us anything if we would put that in as an option bid for this
And
project.
we could request that as an option. My only comment on that, I did talk with a couple different roofers, and it was their recommendation to stay with 60 mil. For whatever reason, they said there wasn't a large advantage to going with a 90 mil. So,
Wasn't there an extended warranty period on that 90 mil versus the cost?
You got me, I don't recall. I remember the bid, but I can't remember what any
I could add
details.
that in as an alternate very easy if that's what you would.
Why don't you, and then we'll take a look at it anyway, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right?
That amendment.
In other words, that
That
probably
amends the
won't be
motion.
ready to
Is
go
that-
right now then.
Yeah, it's just the notice to bidders.
Okay, that's
Milo
fine.
can, it's
Yeah.
not gonna hit the papers there. Milo will have the specs ready by the time anybody approaches us. so.
And I did, already I have 2 alternates in there requesting, let me find my notes.
Here, alternate 1 and 2.
Okay, I have alternate 1 and alternate 2 to add layers of insulation to structure number 2 and structure number 3. That would be the echo chamber meeting room portion. That is woefully lacking in insulation at this time. And
What was that word?
woefully. So that's,
We gotcha.
and I also had requested alternate 2 to add insulation to the North and South Expo buildings and the livestock building.
Okay, so we'll just make it alternate 3.
So we can add an alternate 3 to that.
Sure.
The dates for opening the bids would need to be set by Cindy based on when we can advertise them.
You've asked for December 5th, and that will work.
Okay.
So.
So does that motion need to be amended then with those
Nope,
changes?
nope, all you're doing is authorizing me to publish a notice to bidders.
Okay.
Not the specs.
We have a
themselves.
motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? Good discussion, though. These are good things to hash out. Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sound, sign, motion carries. Thank you, Marlo. Well, let's take number 10. Marlo wants to demolish a building out at Memorial Park. Which building is that?
Okay, this building is labeled as building number 4, a very original name. I'm asking permission to tear this building down at Memorial Park. We have not rented this building for the past 3 seasons. It is in disrepair, and I really don't see the value in trying to revive it.
Where is it in relation to the office?
This building would sit directly behind the garage
Okay,
of
yep.
the manager's office.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Hatton, second by
I'll second.
Waterman. Any more discussion?
And the motion is to declare the building surplus to
Surplus.
be destroyed.
Correct.
All right.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Back to
Knock her down.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I do have some more stuff that will come up later on, probably during new business.
Yes.
So I'll keep hanging around.
Yeah, do that. Appreciate
You can just
that.
leave that off there.
Smile.
That's fine.
All right, let's go back to number 4 then. I think our state's attorney is here now, so she can chime in. Would you like to come forward? Come on up and who of the funeral home representative? Maury, you want to come up? Sure. Introduce yourself so we know, so the press knows who you are. See, Maury wore his tie, so he knew he was going to be live streamed today. So,
You guys
We're
don't
just
have
getting
to
the back
share
of you
mic,
anyway.
So we only have the one.
Maureen Comas from White and Comas Funeral Chapel.
you want to take the mic?
Otherwise, the media yells at us because they don't get the
Maureen
recording.
Comas with White and Comas Funeral Chapel, representing our chapel as well as Chad Ostis, Crawford Ostis. He can't be here today due to a service, so speaking on his behalf as well.
Okay.
Rebecca Morlack-Reeves, I'm state's attorney. So.
Should also be noted that Mr. White is in the audience.
Yes. Hand it back to him. He can introduce himself.
Michael White from White and Comas.
Sarah Peterson, Cottington County Welfare.
You can just keep it off, Becky. Just use it.
Okay, go ahead. Share with us.
Yeah, so I guess to bring you out of the dark is hopefully, yeah, we're just, it looked like apparently back in 2006 or when those change of some of the stipulations or the protocol to approve a county assisted funeral changed dramatically, as you can see. And that's what brings our concern today. It's over the last 10, probably 11 years since 2006. Sarah chose a year there that obviously was the highest. If you look at your graph, that's the highest that they ever paid out. And then since then, you can see that it's a fraction of just looking at our graphs. And I'm sorry, I don't have any graphs to share with you, but it's since 2006. I don't have those right after Sarah don't, but she goes down to 36 and 10, 12 and 11, 17 and 12, and that's down from 77,000. So, a dramatic change is obviously taking place there. And what we're seeing is, I guess, when families come to us and they're looking for assistance with the funeral, they are telling us to our face, that I don't know how we're going to pay for this funeral. And so, years ago when Denise Satka was in there, it was a matter of just a sign of that. We could send them over. They review with her and with Sarah. When she first came in there, she was as well reviewing those cases as we kind of predetermined maybe some of those cases that should be brought to the welfare office and applications filled out. But since the last years, like I say, it's been a declining amount, and I know that's partly due to the changes of policies. I guess what we're here asking for is to review those policies once more. It appears that you're going to the next of kin, and what I'll say about our county with next of kin, as she said, there's very few unclaimed bodies in our county. And so fortunately, we all have family, we all have friends, we all have people that are going to take care of us in our time of need. So we don't have those situations. So somebody's going to come up. I mean, it might be if kids are estranged or not around, it might be your sibling that's going to be a part of service arrangements at least. Or maybe it's going to be a grandparent or a parent that's still in the picture. But I guess the question that I have then is at what length or at what extent of next of kin do we go to have that next of kin pay for that funeral of a brother or a sister or, I mean, so if you didn't like your brother, I'm not picking on my rank, if you didn't like your brother so well, and all of a sudden he unexpectedly passes away, and he's what we would declare as indigent, he don't have assets or monies to pay for his funeral, so he didn't have any kids. But you're a sibling, so now all of a sudden you're the guy that goes to the welfare office to fill out an application, and you've got a little asset. So with that, now all of a sudden, because you maybe didn't get along with your brother, it has become a situation where you have an asset, so you're now on the hook to pay for that brother's funeral, even though you may not have got along with him during the last so many years. So these are things we're seeing. Kids nowadays don't, especially in cases where these are indigent situations, they're having difficulty probably coming up with their monthly rent, let alone paying for $8,000-9,000 funeral that we might have now, city staring them in the face. And so, like I said, we kind of predetermined to have them go down, fill out applications, and I guess what we feel is happening is it's just going maybe a little too far with next of kin. And it might be the 3-4 kids are all not able to pay or have the means to pay, but then 3-4 siblings come in, and one out of the 4 siblings might have the means to pay. So then, as soon as that means is met, the assistance is denied. So, and then they come back to us, and these are the same people that said, I don't know how we're going to pay for this. He had no money. So that's kind of the situation we are getting into. And we're just asking to maybe relook at the protocol or the next of kin definition, maybe find if they live within the household. I don't know how other applications work as far as how other assistance is granted to these individuals. But maybe look at a different means of if they're within the household, if kids are living, helping with the day-to-days, helping maybe with a part-time job to help mom pay the rent, help pay the electric bill, whatever it might be. Then, and if they're getting assistance, maybe that's a similar protocol to take into account. Whereas it's a sibling that lives states away, I don't know if that's a legitimate person that should be liable for this sibling's funeral.
So basically what you're asking us is to review in our policy what we identify as next of kin, probably shorten that list up or consolidate it more. That's basically what you're asking.
Well, right, yeah. So, and like you said, I don't know, the protocol now is that as it's stated in there, I mean, they'll go on to
that's right here.
Siblings, they'll go on to grandparents, they'll go on to adult children. And again, fortunately in our county, you're going to find that person. You're going to find those people, and it just takes one that has a little bit of means or assets, and then all of a sudden it's denied. And that, again, those people aren't always in good relationship with the person that's passed. If they've always kind of been a needy person, or I'm not trying to stereotype that, but it's, if they didn't help them in life to get along, now all of a sudden we're calling on them as in the county.
You might be surprised. They might be happy to bury him.
So Maury, what you're saying is that if me and my brother have not talked in 10 or 15 years, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. We're estranged, if you will. That other brother could still be held responsible for my burial costs.
Correct. And that's how it kind of currently is. And we have those situations. We have a couple right now that we have issues with that same thing. It's just that estrangement that is in place. We don't know that all the time. And the rules of the county assistance is that it needs to be approved before the funeral takes place, and that's usually a 3 to 5 day window. So, sometimes these family members aren't even living in our area, so they have to come a distance and then to make the arrangements and then to get to the county and then to wait a day or two to see if assistance is available. It delays things, I guess. So yeah, I guess if there's a way that we can come up with a different, and I agree with Sarah that you put some pressure on a family member that says either you have to pay for this or it's going to go to claims. We get signatures on our contracts so that they're liable for what they are buying from us. But bottom line, if you don't have it, you don't have it. And so if they can sign my contract, but if they're not going to pay, it's a situation where at the end of the year, maybe it's going to be the end of next year because we haven't had a payment for 2 years. It ends up being wrote off. So then it just adds more costs to our business.
Okay.
So I'd like to ask Maury a question, I guess, if I could, Mr. Chair. In the past, the protocol was, you guys basically would somewhat screen these individuals because you have a pretty good handle on who is able and who is not able as well, right? And so typically, you aren't sending everybody to the county, so.
No, and and it was asked by Sarah of us to kind of pre-screen these families, kind of see if there is someone able to pay. And if they do, we try to work with them. In fact, we even offer some discounts if we can just meet in the middle somewhere that they would come through on that. So yeah, we kind of pre-screen. So we know that, and again, if they're telling you, we don't have the money to pay. He didn't have money, the person that passed. I don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to come up with the money to pay for this funeral. So those are signs to me that they need to go down and see Sarah and fill out some applications for possible assistance. So, maybe it's our own fault that we don't, when you come in and you buy a funeral from us, we don't do a background check. We don't run through your financial documents to see if you're capable of paying. We just, I guess, are the friendly undertaker that says, yeah, we'll take care of the services that you're asking us to render. We assume that you're going to pay us for the services rendered. And that does not happen.
And you're not in the collection business, you're in the burying business, that's right.
We're not a bank.
Any more questions for
What makes this even more difficult is you're talking about a shortened time frame. You have to do this expeditiously, 3 to 5 days generally, like you said.
And the information that is required is quite lengthy, I believe. You got to have your tax forms. But if they don't,
right.
We always used to, Sarah. Yeah, that's how it always used to be. So, and we couldn't really move forward until we got confirmation of that. And we may have had services scheduled and just still waiting because we usually would hear back within a day or within 48 hours of whether it's approved or not. In a situation where someone says they can't afford a funeral, we've already kind of predetermined some of the products that maybe they're going to use to keep the cost of the funeral down. So in the event where county assists it, we still move forward with what we have to use, the minimum casket, minimum vault, or minimum urn. In the event where county disapproves, they still use probably the same products because it's still a lesser expensive, and now we just need to work out how are they going to move forward, how are they going to pay for this, and it could take months and months.
So another thing too on that application, say there's 4 siblings. One has the ability to pay, the other 3 do not. So typically, that assistance is denied then, and because of the one sibling that's able to pay, but still the other ones are not.
I can speak to how the applications are done if you want.
Maury, can you hand the mic back to Sarah?
Okay, when we do the application process, the reason I did 2006, I just want to bring that, was that's the first year I worked. I can't speak to the years prior, and that's what the policies was that in place. We don't look, to need to clarify, we do not look at other family members' assets. We only look at the person that's deceased to see if they have assets. We only look at their income, okay? We take a look at their income, not their assets. We take a look to determine if they're indigent, and we take a look at only 2 to 3% of their income. Now, if someone's income is under 100%, we don't count that individual. So let's say you had the example of 4 family members, and 2 were under 100%. We don't count those. Majority of applications that we take, one things that we ask, the question we ask, are you estranged? If they say no, then we put that on. Or if they are, they put that on that application. We don't necessarily, the question that I'm always asked by state's attorney, is how do you define estranged? But then we don't request for that information. So the majority of the burials we approved are for family members that do say they are estranged. So I just want to clarify, we do take, that's exactly what we take a look at. We do request the tax return if we feel that we need it, but we only look to see if the family member can pay in 2 years. Can they pay divided by those who are not estranged, which we would call unwilling, or that have income? And we look to see, is that income more than, we don't ever look at 2 to 3% of their income. The last application we had, the individuals was 0.065. Now, if there was one individual that maybe had income like of, we've had this, $400,000 a year, yes, then that one individual would be considered to be able to pay. And we don't look out, we request the information for people out of state, but we don't enforce it. But we've had good luck where people have said, yes, I'll pay that, I don't have an issue. We definitely take a look at that. I think that's really, really something that needs to be clarified with those applications. We take a look, we verify, the funeral home, I don't want them asking for the detailed information. They do a good job screening, refer them, allow me to do the work of gathering the tax returns so that they can focus on the funeral. And that's how we've done it. And then that's where, if we need those tax returns, we'll grab it. For example, we had that case where the individual had a $450,000 house, but assessed by the county, but reported only $10,000 income. That's why I asked for the tax return. And I've never had anybody not be able to provide. Actually, we've had people that they reported their income. We requested tax return because things weren't matching, and their tax return were lower. We had one case where the individual is actually eligible. Had I gone by just what they stated, they would have been denied. We do not look at, we divide it up of those who are willing and don't look at more than 2 to 3% of their income to make payments. It is county rate because we don't have to look beyond that of 2 to 3% of their income. That is how the process goes.
So I have a question for Sarah. Say the person has been eligible and is on county assistance. And then the family, of course, then applies for county burial, but it's denied. Is there any way that we could use the same documentation that you use to verify that they're eligible for county assistance, that they would be eligible for a county burial?
Every time, county assistance is not an ongoing, it's an emergency services. So somebody who might be eligible at one point is just situational, and they may not be later. So I wouldn't recommend that. We need to look at each situation. I might have someone come in today, and then a year ago was very broke, but today are maybe making $80,000. So you have to, our county assistance is not ongoing. And if you're doing that person's application, then you're only looking at the individual. Our policies, it was based on the recommendation of the state's attorney. We looked at the statutes of who is responsible. You can do that, but you anticipate at least increasing our budget, that budget, by over $50,000 a year.
If that person is at the time on county assistance is what I'm talking about. Okay, so what I'm getting to also is, who do you look to determine whether they're eligible for county assistance? How far out do you go? Who's on that document?
On the presentation, if you go back, we list that, and we list that order. It would be...
That's on the burial. I'm talking about county assistance. Like if they come in for county assistance, who do you consider as being part of your decision-making as to whether they're eligible or not?
Depends on the type of assistance. If it's rent, we look at the household. We look at household income, which can be a boyfriend, girlfriend, roommates. So if you look at our policies, rents and utilities are based on household. Medical is based on who is responsible. So it varies. Our policies vary based on the type of assistance that we use. In our policies, if it's rent, it's household income. If it's utilities, it's household income. Prescription is just those who are responsible. Medication is those who are legally responsible. Am I missing other services?
So where do you get the information as to, on some of those other instances, who is responsible?
It's what was developed and written in our county policies. When I started the job, I just followed the policies.
But you're not sure how far out it is? You don't know right off the top of your head who is?
Who's responsible?
Yeah.
Like for the medical?
Right.
Okay, we just go by the law. So, like, but that's different than the burial policies, and it's different than the rents and utilities. So rents and utilities are household. Medical is who's responsible. So if I have a child, I'm responsible for that child. But we don't look at children under 18 for burials. But so it varies. So medical would be a child. It would be a spouse. And I think that's it, right? The self on that. Yeah. But all our applications, I can have somebody come in 2 months ago and not be eligible and be eligible today. I have applications from some people that actually are now pretty prominent business people. So I wouldn't recommend looking back at their past.
No, I'm not. I wasn't insinuating that. I was insinuating if they are on county assistance at the time of their death.
I don't think we've had that happen at this time. I'm not aware of any that we had, but within our policies, you'd have to change the policy to only look at the deceased. We do gather that information, absolutely. If I've got someone and I've got their file, I've got a little bit of information on them. I know their history maybe, but as far as if you change the policies and only want to look at the deceased, we can do that, but most of these applications are fairly old, that I don't know what their situation is unless we were working with them for disability. But as far as those applications don't look at their siblings, because the statutes have that in the law that we can do that, and that was approved by the board to look at that for those. So they're two different applications. It's like comparing apples and oranges. It's kind of hard, but do we bring in that information? Absolutely. If I know somebody that has come in and we helped them with health insurance, I'm aware of that. But I'm also aware if it's a circumstance or if it's long-term that they aren't ever going to have anything because that was a disabling condition.
Moving on, we waited for this discussion for our state's attorney, Becky, so we're going to give you a chance to chime in here. You got to give us your 2 cents.
I mean, what I would advise is, I've had a chance to look at the statutes that control the policy that's been enacted. I will tell you that the policy that's been enacted comports with what's in state statute. So it's going to be a decision of the commission whether you want to deviate and be more liberal than what state statutes allow us. I think in doing so, then you need to look at the economic ramifications for the county.
Okay.
So basically, the only thing that, at this point, it's like next of kin. That's something that we can alter, because next of kin is very broad.
It's defined in statute very broadly, yeah. And I mean, the policy is being applied broadly. By doing so, the costs to the county are less using that application. I think you have to decide how you're going to do it, taking into account, I mean, there's a lot of different circumstances going, and it's just the economics of it.
Sure. Do you have any questions?
Well, in the
Morning.
statute, is next of kin and kindred used is the same term? Because I believe that's how the statute reads, is that
I think
kindred?
But isn't kindred more broad than next of kin?
It is.
Kindred is more broad. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Becky? Charlie?
Go ahead. I just wanted to make sure that Mr. White, if he had anything to add to this discussion, had the opportunity to. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Charlie?
Curiosity on the statute we're going by and the state's deal. How many, and I know this is a blindsided question, but how many counties adhere to the state statutes, and how many variations is there, or is that something you get back later on with us?
Sarah might have some information on that.
A lot of the counties that I reported do that as well. Your smaller counties aren't going to. They don't even have welfare directors, and they may be, like if you take a look at the graph, like Hamlin County, they don't even, they might just get called. They're like, we're not going to mess with that. We don't get enough calls in some of those smaller counties. In our state association meetings, welfare director association meetings, they talk about this. they recommend to consider, so that the important thing is to be consistent. And that is why within our procedure process of it, next of kin is defined as what's in this presentation. So we do narrow that, but I would have to look back to give you the exact numbers, but I can tell you Brookings County, Brown County, Lincoln, I have to check with Lawrence, Minnehaha. They have these in their policies and procedures listed. So I could get you the exact number. I could send out an email to all of them and see what they say. Walworth County, I know, does it. Potter County does it. Those are just some that, off the cuff that I know. These are their practices. The smaller the county, the less likely they're going to. Also, the smaller amounts. I think Cameron County maybe pays, Day County pays, I think, maybe $1,500. Dual County in the last, 6 years has paid a total of $7,000. So those counties probably don't even necessarily look like that. So the smaller they are, the less likely they even have any policies. They don't even have directors.
Maury has a comment here.
Charlie, your question was in regards to the application approval?
Yeah, following state statutes, the state guidelines, I guess they're not statutes,
for
but
application
guidelines.
to be approved. That's what you're referring to. I was referring that or comparing that to the number of actually approved assistances, because like Sarah said, Hamlin County might be one of the lowest paid counties, and we're probably one of the higher of the state. So that does affect, obviously, the number of dollars out there. So per capita is maybe a number to look at, is how many people in Day County actually get applied and how many are approved, versus our county being a little more populated versus Minnehaha. So.
All right, we've had a lot of information brought out in reference to this situation this morning. What's the wishes of the commission? Anyone have any suggestions where we go?
I guess I would like us to take a look at next of kin. I feel we are going out further than I guess I'm comfortable with, especially if they're estranged, and going after brothers and sisters of the deceased. I think we need to draw a better line on that. That would just be my opinion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Then I would suggest that maybe if Commissioner Hanna, if you want to get together with a few folks involved and maybe come up, just take a look at that and just see if, and then.
One other
come back with
commissioner
it.
maybe want to be involved?
I will.
Troy?
It's pretty obvious that it'll cost the county more money. That's what it'll cost. In other words, it'll be, what I'm trying to say, that if we narrow that definition, that there'll be more burials responsible to the county. There's no question about that.
Maury maybe wants to
Maury?
make a comment to that.
Prior to Sarah's time, I guess, getting statistical numbers from prior to her time here, and she's doing a good job. She's saving you guys a lot of money. You go back prior to that with Denise Saka being the former welfare director, and the number of approvals back then and the number of dollars, and again, keeping it in perspective of the dollars then, how many got approved throughout the year versus the recent years of how it's been. Again, I don't think there's near as many, and I guess my comment is that I do not believe that there's more people making more money today than there were 15 years ago, when maybe there was 10 approved for the year, whereas now we maybe get 2. And I know, like I said, the protocol has changed, and you guys have cutbacks. You're trying to save money and spend money wisely as well, but it's just there's just as much of a need today as there was 15 years ago, when I know there was more county-approved services for those in need.
And comment to that also, it's just, is it really right if you have an estranged brother that you're responsible to pay for his burial costs?
Well, I think
say that
this
again.
is
I didn't understand what you said.
I said, is it really right in the way that we have it, if you have an estranged sibling, that you are responsible to pay for his funeral costs?
Well, I think we're in a situation here where there's probably no right or wrong way. I'm sitting here as an individual, having gone through this. I have been in the process with my mother and father, both passed away, and I dealt with my siblings. And it was, and I wish that more people were maybe raised the way I was raised. We were raised to take care of our kin, our next of kin and our family, and I don't care if I'd have to sell a farm. I'd make certain that my brother that I might not have got along with had a decent burial. I mean, I wish that we could instill that into our people and they would understand what we're talking about.
Mr. Chair, I don't think anybody disputes that. That's a responsibility that all families should take on. However, there are circumstances where that's not always the case, and those are the ones that we need to look at. So I think we form that group and we get to work looking at this and see what we can come up with.
Sarah.
I agree.
It keeps being brought up that we shouldn't have to, that estranged individuals shouldn't have to pay, and if you pull the applications, we are paying for the estranged individuals. So we need to clarify that. That is exactly what we look at, and that's the majority. That is actually mostly the ones that we pay. So please understand that. That are the ones that we are paying for, is those with the estranged families. Now, if someone doesn't tell me that they're estranged when we ask that on an application, or that they're unwilling, we definitely take a look at that. I mean, these are claimed bodies. These aren't unclaimed. These are people that aren't staying, that it's estranged. And then if it is denied, before it is ever denied, it goes to the state's attorneys, for the state's attorneys to review. Are we following the statute? And then the family is given the right to appeal. There's an appeal process right on the notice of action that they receive. So, they have those process. I just want to clarify, because it keeps being brought up, we shouldn't have to pay for the estranged. You might have 4 siblings and only one is estranged. We don't know, that, not finding necessarily that's the case.
Thank you. Okay, with the suggestion that was made here, Commissioner Van Dusen and Commissioner Brenda, you want to get together with Sarah and bring to us at the meeting, and Becky, and the meeting, I don't know, is next week too soon, or 2 weeks, what do you need?
Well,
Couple of weeks?
whatever,
Couple of weeks,
yeah.
anyway, get it on the agenda and we'll visit this situation again. And let me just reiterate, Mr. Comus and Mr. White, I have all the respect in the world for you folks that are in the funeral business. You got a tough job. And like I mentioned before, you're not in the banking business. You're not in the collection agency business. You're in the business to provide a service at a very difficult time in these families' lives. And I admire your work, and just keep up the good work. We very, very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks
And
for coming.
we'll do what we can in our end to help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks. Thank you.
Anything else for the cause? Thank you, Becky. All right, let's go on then. Let's go on with number 11, action to declare register of deeds, computer equipment surplus to be destroyed. I think we replaced it in a meeting 2 ago.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Hatton, a second by Gable. Any discussion? What does this include?
Let me get to that.
It's not necessary.
No, I will let you know. I have it right here. 3 towers. And 4 towers, I'm sorry. 4 towers purchased in 2011 and 2012.
Okay.
For the Register of Deeds, they will be destroyed. There were several monitors that were also available, but they were able to be transferred to other departments to utilize.
All right.
Those towers that you say will be destroyed, do they go to a business to be destroyed?
Nope, I believe our facility people pull the hard drives and hammer them.
Okay, all right.
Is my understanding.
30-6.
Correct. Milo is here to verify that.
As long as they're getting destroyed completely. So.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We have action to transfer commission contingency to the mentally ill budget. Cindy?
The mentally ill budget is our involuntary involuntary admitters, people that are admitted to the state hospital in Yankton from Cottington County. We budgeted $35,000 in that budget for 2017. We have spent $35,407.05. My recommendation is to supplement that with $7,500 to
Make
get
that
us through the
motion.
end of the year.
We have a motion by Hatton, second by Waterman.
Hang on, I want to verify that number before
Okay,
7,600, I'm sorry.
7,600 is what
Yes.
you're asking.
Yes.
All
I'll
right.
amend my motion for 7,600.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Is that
I'll
all right
second.
with you? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Action to approve claims for payment.
We had one claim outside the normal claim. We also have salary claims, but we had a claim to Maxwell Food Equipment in Sioux Falls for a commercial refrigerator for the detention center. The old one suddenly quit working. It was a number of years old. We did declare it surplus. So the amount of the claim is $3,089.29.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Motion by Hatton, second by Gable.
Gable?
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. How about automatic budget supplements?
None today. Actually, we have salary claims first as part of the claims.
Yes.
Salary
Okay.
claims for the month of October were $513,205.64. Nothing out of the ordinary other than step increases that you previously approved. No retirements or severance this month.
Motion
Move
to
to approve.
approve them by Hatton, second by Gable.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Now we go to supplements, and you said...
Nothing today.
You had nothing on supplements. Personnel changes. We have a couple in your packet.
The first one is Alyssa Hart. She's a clerk in the auditor's office. She's due her anniversary step increase to step 6, $17.24 an hour. Jill Schweitzer is a clerk in the Register of Deeds office. She's due her anniversary step increase to step 9, $18.32 an hour. Brent Solom is a deputy sheriff. He'll go to step 4, $22.66 an hour. The rest of these are highway employees, and Alan Bank will go to step 11, $23.19 an hour. Brad Schwinger, step 11, $23.19 an hour. Rick Holinka, step 11, he's a different, he's maintenance 2, he'll go to $22.53 an hour. And Jamie Dolan is maintenance 3, he will go to step 5, $20.45 per hour.
Move to approve.
Second
We have
that.
a motion by Van Dusen, second by Hatton. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Travel requests, we do have a couple here. The one that was submitted for Jim Sutton, we will pull that one. All right, we discussed that earlier. Do we need to go any depth of that? Anything else? Is that
Well,
correct?
Yeah,
It's a
the only one that I've got is for Steve Mollengrath. I don't have a cost of travel for that one.
Because it won't be the vehicle now, they're going to fly, so.
Right, so the lodging expense, will that change also? Okay, okay. Lodging, $220, meals, $75, and then whatever the cost is for the airline.
And then the cost for driving home, fuel.
Oh, yeah.
Move to
fuel for driving
approve
home.
that.
Motion by Waterman. Motion by Waterman,
Second.
second by Gable. Any discussion?
You're too quick.
And the Watertown Bucks going to the Christmas program party. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 17 is the old business, and Lee,
Yeah, if I could ask you folks to come up. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you for sitting and waiting. I'm sorry, you had quite an education.
I've learned more about funeral information than I've ever known.
I tell you what, that's a tricky deal, that funeral deal. And
Why isn't the TV coming on?
Bruce, I'll just have you use the mic when you talk, okay?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Good to see you all. After working with you for over a year now, it's good to be actually in front of the entire... Oh, thank you, sir. My name is Bruce Schwartzman. I'm with BKV Group. We're an architectural engineering firm out of Minneapolis. And with me, I have Anthony Enright, who's also...
Well, I apologize because this TV just said not to come on.
Lee, we do have... We brought brought it with us as well, and we can plug
Plug
in
it in.
if that helps.
You got a regular HDMI?
Yes.
Well, hopefully the TV will come on, because it's just not the
Oh,
same
it has
turn.
more.
There it is.
I got it. Okay, I can do it from, I can just
Price
do
is
it.
Right is on too, so.
I can just cast it from. I have that PDF, so I have that on the screen. That'll work. You can just tell me what, just
So
tell me.
Commissioners, I think, if I could,
Yeah, I just want
Go
to,
ahead. Yeah.
I just want to introduce, so this is Bruce and Anthony from BKV Architects, and so we approved the contract a few weeks ago. This is for the courthouse remodel, and so I just asked them to give us an overview of the project, and so they have some sketches and a timeline that they're going to run through with us, so.
exactly. Thank you, Commissioner. So really just a general overview of the project, and the plan that shows up there is the existing building, and you can see on the left-hand side, even though we're showing the entire floor plan, but the left-hand area is actually the remodeling of the equalization office into the new jury courtroom. So you should see that. And then part of that remodeling would also include the judge's chamber as well as jury deliberation. So we had an initial meeting with the judge and clerk of courts, and today is a follow-up, and there'll be some subsequent meetings as well to refine it as we go forward. So this is really one of the early conceptual plans, really just to get their initial feedback. Down in the right-hand corner, where the nurse's office currently is, in that area, the plan is, of course, that would be remodeled into the clerk of courts space. And so we're showing really the idea, I think, as the commissioners discussed, is as things continue to move ahead and hopefully move ahead with what's being planned and the needs for the jail, at least moving ahead with some of the planning needs to address some of the justice system. And this is a way to kind of accomplish some of that. I think that works quite well.
Let me go down.
Yeah, fine. So again, you can see that it's rotated, but this is a blow-up plan of the clerk of courts. And the idea is you come in off the lobby space, you have a number of counters where individuals can be supported and served by the clerk of court staff. So you really have these built-in workstations that wrap around that basically U-shaped counter area. And then you're able to accommodate the workstations and the offices and the file areas that the clerk of courts needs for that. And again, we needed to review this with them, but in concept, when we had our initial meeting, it seemed that this space would work well.
How many windows do we have now? We don't have this many now, do we?
You have
In the
three, I think there's
courts.
three, and three
I think
are,
there's just three.
three
So we're doubling
realistically,
doubling the
realistically,
capacity there.
Yeah. So it's still the same number of people, it's just the way they're situated, I think allows for it to work.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the first things we looked at was the National Center of State Courts program that was done a couple of years ago or so, 3 years ago at this point, actually had a much larger program space than what this is. So, through appropriate planning, I think you can make things work well. Again, the area that would be then north of the new courtroom shows a jury deliberation. The goal to build an appropriate jury deliberation space as well as a restroom for the jurors that are in that space as well.
Yeah, that's basically where the welfare office is right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have to work around the structure. There's some things we need to verify. Of course, part of this remodeling is not only the remodeling of the floor plans and the layouts, but also mechanical, electrical, and all those things that go along with space remodeling as well. And then I think the next plan, Lee, would then probably show the courtroom. Again, when you come down, so currently you come down the stairs, you have that lift that takes you down to equalization. We're maintaining that. We're basically opening up the entire space. You can see the spectator area, approximately 42 seats for spectators on the south side. There's some minor nuances, minor things we want to coordinate with the judge, some things I would change a little bit. But you can see that, courtroom layout is about the appropriate number of spaces needed for jurors and witness and clerk and judge and the attorneys as well as spectators, but it also has a lot to do with sight lines, the ability for the jurors to properly see the witness, for the reporter to see the witness to recording the event, and the judge to see all the events that are going on as well as the attorney. So once we get the plan adjusted a little bit more and made sure it's kind of in line and the judges are comfortable with it, we'll do some sight line studies as well to make sure that those sight lines are workable and that the courtroom functions well. There's some ADA accessible issues. We have some ramps to provide accessibility for the witness, for the clerks. The judge's space is actually would go behind to the area. So there are some things that the ADA accommodations allow you to adapt space as needed in the future. Because of the elevations of the building, there's certain limitations we have to deal with, and we have to deal with those the best we can, so.
And by elevations, he's talking about how the.
Height changes.
Yeah, the height change. So like the Director of Equalization office now is lower than the rest of that ground floor. So there's some trickiness to work through that they have to do.
So Bruce, the judge's bench, is that kind of offset at an angle? Is that right where that pointer's at?
Exactly,
Okay.
it's a corner bench configuration.
And that's pretty normal. A lot of them we visited, they sat in the corner at an angle.
Yes.
How about there, I was just down there this morning, and I looked around, there's no, is that open space? There's no pillars, no holes in there?
Open.
Yes.
It is open.
Yes.
That's the good part.
Exactly. So having those columns out, you know, it creates no obstructions in there helps. It is somewhat of a narrow space, so there is a little bit of a pinch point, but I think it does work fairly well. Do you want to talk to the elevations now?
Sure. I can actually talk about that. So these are just very preliminary 3D renderings of, so you can see some of those sight lines. So this is actually looking from the audience area back towards the judge. So you can see that corner bench configuration there, the higher walls that you see in the back, that's actually where the judge's bench would be. And then the attorney tables are sighted out in the front. That's where it gets a little tight because of the angle of the attorney tables and the overall width of the courtroom, but as Bruce said, it's still a workable courtroom, and you can fit an entire jury bench in there as well.
Go to the next one.
Yeah. And also, I'd like to point out too, so some of the things that we'll do once we finalize the actual design will be coordination of technology, exhibit displays, so when you have evidence displays and all that, where will that happen, how will that happen? And once we get a good layout, we can coordinate that as well.
And this kind of shows you a sight line, as Bruce said, sitting at the judge's bench looking out, so you can see that even though, again, it's kind of tight in there, you have good sight lines to the jury, to the clerk, to the witness. It's actually pretty workable from an overall spatial standpoint. And all the existing exterior windows would just be left, so we wouldn't be doing any disturbance to those existing windows.
I know that's having the existing windows, would you recommend obscuring, maybe putting film or anything over that?
Something to consider. I mean, certainly a consideration to talk to the judge as well.
My thought is, given the historic nature of the building, probably the only thing we would do is have blinds and potential close. I'd be concerned about the film and what that would do to the appearance of the exterior.
But we have the historical preservation folks involved, so, yeah.
The only thing that, I think this is great, and I'm glad to see this work getting done like this. The only thing that still concerns me is when our sheriff walked in, we still have to march the prisoners through the common area. I still have to, if there's some way we could, there's just no way to do that.
In an old historic courthouse, and we've done many of these courthouses, the best remedy is if the county eventually gets the citizens to approve a project to move forward, and you minimize the movement of inmates only in special occasions when you have to bring them into a certain courtroom.
And what you're saying is, if and when, and it's not if and when, it's when we get our new jail, we will be able to put a courtroom in there that will facilitate a lot of that traffic.
Exactly.
Cut that down.
That's small.
Yeah.
The court system does utilize, excuse me, Mr. Jay, the court system does utilize video arraignment. So some of the first appearances and some of that, they do the best they can to minimize court appearances, but of course they are required.
And Milo's office will now be under one of the benches, the observers' benches.
Do you have a business card?
Yeah.
That I could have too, for my minutes? Okay.
And then looking at the clerk of court space, again, this is very basic, just to show you kind of the size of those openings would be. We haven't really designed the space. This is just a spatial layout, but it does show you those windows that we were talking about. There's multiple windows sort of around that U-shaped lobby. I think the last one just looks inside the clerk of court space out, so you can see those fixed workstations. That would be service counters from the clerk of court space.
So it's really the same number of people, just arranging it for customer service a little bit more easily, so, yeah, okay.
The overall schedule, so the project's divided into really kind of, a number of phases. The first phase is the design phase, and again, we'll work through, we've got at least 2 meetings slated where we go through the various components to make sure we're getting things laid out. And the design phase makes sure that we've got not only the space layouts correct, but all the built-in requirements, and any doors, and any exiting, and any code requirements. And then we start to look at the mechanical, electrical systems and what needs to be modified and integrated to make those work. We'll also bring our engineers out as we have one of the subsequent meetings to look at the layout, as well as the court technology consultant that we have to look at that as well. And then once we make sure we've got things laid out properly, and we submit that to the county for review of the final plans and the judges to confirm it as well, we then go into the construction document phase, where we put all the final kind of detailing together, all the precise information that the contractors need to bid it, properly bid it, and construct it. So we have roughly another, 2 months for the design phase, 2 months for the construction document phase. Once that's completed, again, we'd submit the plans to the county, the judges, make sure everybody reviews it, approves it, everything's.
So we should be ready to bid it at March 1st, right?
Yeah, I think that's right, Commissioner. I think, Mr. Chair, I think that's where we.
March 8th.
Yes. So we'll be ready to bid it.
I'm writing that down. Oh.
So the plan will be, of course, to put it out to bid. We'll have a series of meetings then as well. We'll have a pre-construction meeting with contractors to show them the site, answer any questions they have. We'll be here for the bid openings. We'll go through the bid award, and we'll go through that as well. And the phasing that's been discussed, I think that you all know, is when the nurses move out, that space is vacated for clerk of courts. It's remodeled, clerk of courts moves down, equalization moves up to where clerk of courts was, and then the equalization office is then vacated, so that can be remodeled for the new courtroom. So I think those are the puzzle pieces that need the shell game that needs to move around a little bit to make
The dominoes, the domino effect.
Exactly.
Good.
I think that's your last one, I believe.
It was, and the budget that you all approved we had set for the project, we will track that as we continue to go through to make sure we're staying on budget. When you put together a preliminary budget, you do it based on a higher number. We're hoping that as it bids, we can get some tighter numbers. So I think we're pretty comfortable with the budget that have been put together.
So when construction actually starts, how often can we expect a report on the progress and where we're at, and who's going to do that?
So it's either myself or Anthony, and
Okay.
there's another architect that's helping in the project. We're on site every 2 weeks, roughly every 2 weeks. It depends on the activity that's going on, and we would be more than glad to update the board on a monthly basis. It's whatever.
I think we would appreciate that. Keep us in the loop and see what's happening.
The agreement had a specified number of visits. I want to say 14. I don't know if that includes like the pre-design. I can't remember if that's the pre-design or the whole, or just the construction.
Just construction.
Okay, so that's programmed in there anyway. So.
Very good. Any other questions for these gentlemen? Tonight is a meeting. What time?
Yeah, so tonight is the next Cunningham County Justice Advisory Committee meeting, and we'll go over this in a little bit more detail maybe.
And that's an open meeting?
That's an open meeting, yeah. So that's at LATI 610 tonight in room 430. Just a couple other things, just to explain that this is kind of the first day of the pre-design, or the design phase. And so picking up on some of the preliminary meetings that Bruce did with the clerk of courts and the judges, taking back and working through these sketches that they just showed, and that's taken place over the course of today, plus talking with the building soup, so with Milo, the fire inspector, and some historical preservation folks are going to be here from Pier to make sure we're touching base on that. So, and then we meet tonight at LATI for the Justice Advisory Committee meeting.
6:10.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll see you tonight.
Thanks, Bruce.
I'll be right back, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Moving on. New business. Is there any other old business? Any other old business? Seeing no other old business, new business, I know Milo would like to share with us a thought or two.
I have something as well when Milo gets done.
I got one thing as well.
All right.
Maybe we should space your trips up here a little bit until you fully recover with that knee.
Okay, the first thing I would like to talk about, my department, we're experiencing a vehicle shortage. Typically, I'm using my personal vehicle more and more to do county business, and I would like to look into purchasing another vehicle for our use. This would not specifically need to be a pickup. I think an SUV or a crossover type vehicle would be sufficient, as we are in good shape for our pickups, snow plowing, hauling equipment, that type of thing. I have looked over the offerings on the state bid. The most economical options are over $20,000 for a large sedan, such as an Impala. going to a pickup or SUV, we jump up in the 26,000 plus range. So I personally don't think that's a very good option for what I'm looking for. I've checked the federal surplus site, and that, the vehicles available there come and go, but they tend to be quite expensive also. Over, the ones that were available when I last looked were over $20,000.
Just a thought, Milo. Sheriff Brad, have you got anything in your fleet that needs to be replaced that would work? I just was driving down the road thinking about this the other day. I think Toby drove a Suburban, which is something that might work, a Suburban. You still could haul something. Do we still have that Suburban?
I actually drive a Suburban. I looked at the miles. I got a couple more years left of using that thing.
Okay.
In my office, and I don't foresee anything here in the future that
Sure.
done out from us. Only when our stuff is done.
When you're done, it's shot. Yeah.
Cindy, isn't there a dollar amount, like, we can go to local dealers as well?
And that's what I did some checking locally, and there are some used vehicles available locally with low miles, typically in the $16,000 range. A couple examples, I found a 2014 Ford Escape with 40,000 miles. It was $14,000.
Is that mine?
Is that the one? That's the vehicle that the steering wheels fall off, isn't it? Don't they have a recall on them because the steering wheels are falling off? Be ready.
Cindy, where does
I
this,
haven't gotten that I haven't gotten that recall.
where does this money come from then? Does this need to be a budgeted item?
This will have to, actually, there is money available if we would do something like this. Another example, I come across a 2015
From where?
Dodge Journey.
That's my question.
33,000 miles.
Milo's
It would
budget.
become from the government buildings
Yeah,
budget.
this would
Okay.
come out of my budget.
All right.
So if the board would consider a used vehicle, I do have funds available for something like that, and I could come back at another meeting with an official request.
I will make that motion.
You can't make a motion.
It was just on for discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
It
under,
wasn't
yeah, new
even on
business.
the-
Okay, yeah, it's
even
on,
the
okay,
agenda.
so,
I think what Milo needs to do
He
is go
just
shopping
needs-
and find something that he can get in and out of.
He
I just
just-
want to say, if you guys are agreeable to this, I'll go further. If this
Yeah.
isn't something you're interested in,
Right.
we stop it at this point.
you just need a board
What's the
consensus.
consensus of the board? Are you all right that Milo go shopping?
Milo, how many vehicles does your department have right now?
Well, we have one pickup
Okay.
at the courthouse. We have one pickup at the extension complex. And then at Memorial Park, we have one pickup, one van, two pickups and one van.
And a gator.
Yeah, and a gator.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the pickups out at the park, typically I won't let it leave the park. It's, probably should go down the road, but it still suffices for use out there.
Okay. Any other questions for Milo? Anything else? We're going to do this with just a common consensus. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well, you're just
do that.
recommending
taking
that
Yeah.
Mr. Ford seek proposals and report back to the board,
Mr. Ford.
Mr. Ford, I don't know about
the
that.
facility manager.
Okay, the other item I have for you, I have located a scissor lift out at the western location of the federal surplus, South Dakota federal surplus. We have a scissor lift out there. It is available for $3,000. We have frequent need for something like this out at the ag building. Typically, we go out and rent one, when we need it, when we can. Sometimes they're not available when we want them. I think this would be a good investment just to purchase one of these. The price is right. It so happens our weed supervisor is going to be on a trip out there, and he offered to stop and look at it for me. If it's something that looks agreeable, he could possibly pick it up at that time. There again, I'm not sure, do we need a motion for
What's the cost?
$3,000 expenditure?
Yeah, it's $2,000 is
Okay,
the limit.
and we can still do that at next week's meeting
Put it on the agenda.
and be able to contact Steve with that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That's the information I would want to know is how much do we spend to rent a scissor lift annually? You don't have to tell me now, but when we talk
I
about
can get
it, yeah.
And how
I
often
can
it's
give you
used.
that information next week.
We just talked about it yesterday or Sunday, didn't we?
Yes, we did, and I'd just like a little bit for the other board members' clarification. How old is this unit? What is the height? What's the size of it? A few things like that.
The height, they had it's stated to go 20 to 24 foot. I'm not aware of the age, or the exact measurements on it. It appears to be about what would you say, a 8-foot deck on it, Steve, the way it looks?
6 to 8 foot deck.
Is this something that could be transported out to, say, Memorial Park? Is this an indoor-only unit?
Yeah, indoor or flat surface or hard surface. I did ask that question if they felt it was transportable, like we have a tilt bed trailer,
Or a box truck.
Pardon?
Or
A new box truck.
Yeah.
With the tail lift.
So we should be able to drive it onto our tilt bed trailer to take it to a different location.
You got a lift gate on this thing now.
Milo, will that, I assume you need this kind of a unit so that you can get, it's going to sound crazy, but get higher up in the air, obviously, to change like lights and stuff.
Yep.
Will that work at the Ag building?
Currently, our light fixtures out there, we have to rent a lift or hire somebody to come in with a lift to change a light bulb. Or to clean the fixtures.
We were just talking, Harley and I and Al Johnson, in reference to veteran services coming up out there, and Al wants to hang the flags, the banners up for the veteran service, and we need a lift. That was just in a discussion that we were sitting at the 4-H thing the other day, and so it'd be used fairly often.
Just for your information, we do have that covered.
Okay, I said, yes, thank you.
Good, that is
Okay.
covered, yeah.
So if, with your permission, I would ask Cindy then to put that on the agenda for next Tuesday.
Good, sounds good. All right, thank you, Milo. Is that it?
That's all I have.
Go
Thanks,
shopping.
Milo.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other, let's see, who had,
I can do it in the open, it doesn't matter.
all right,
It's
Yeah.
Brenda?
Either
what
way,
did you have?
I have the information from the third quarter 911 that I will hand out to each of you so you can look it over if you have,
I've got one.
to give you information about
Made a copy for
where they're
myself
at,
already.
how many calls have been taken and so forth, so just for your information.
All right, is there any other?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, just a
Yes.
couple quick things. One, just an update on I talked about it a little bit before, but on finding office space for the two smaller offices involved in this move, the Veterans Assistance and the Welfare offices. We did talk to Brenda and I talked to Commissioner Hatton and I talked to the Park and Rec Board at their meeting, and so they basically supported it, but so now we need to negotiate a lease agreement. So we're having a meeting on Thursday with Park and Rec, us two, and Milo to make sure we got things figured out. But basically the gist of it is the Park and Rec is just concerned that any increase in utilities would be covered by us. So that's essentially what they're asking us to do is cover utilities. And then possibly some custodial type services and working out the details of that. So that's in the works. And that was Commissioner Hatton's suggestion to go over and look at the auditorium. And then on the nurse's office, we've identified 2 good properties downtown. So I've been in discussion with the Department of Health about which of those properties they like better. And right now, as always, we'd be covering the 2 admin assistants and the space, so that means the rent of the building. As far as the movement and getting, say, internet and stuff like that hooked up, the Department of Health is likely to cover that, but we're still working through that. So possibly next week we might be looking at 2 lease agreements, maybe 1 or 2 lease agreements on the agenda next week. So, and then the other thing I had, Mr. Chairman, we had a good meeting for the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative that was put together by the court system, the Unified Judicial System. And so the community's in the process of putting together a committee Most of the work is going to be it's going to be a lot of school, police department, courts, the court service officers working on that committee. Some of the community health, like the HSA and the Lutheran Social Services on that committee. The chair and co-chair right now, we're looking at a judge and a commissioner for the co-chair. So right now, that looks like it's going to be Judge Means as the chair and me as co-chair for that committee. So that, again, that's the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative. And if it really, it doesn't have to be me. We can involve other commissioners, but I do have some literature here if folks want to kind of follow what's on. There's a lot of internet resources that go into this because it's a national effort, and I got some material here for you to look at if you want to get a login and an account there. So.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Any questions for Commissioner Gable? Anything for the open?
Okay, so I have a number of events that there could possibly be a quorum of commissioners at. Tonight, obviously, the CJAC meeting at 6:10. On Thursday evening, there's a Merry Mix and Mingle at the Event Center from 5 to 7. Friday morning, it's a Hall of Fame event at the Event Center at 11:30. And that night, I guess it's Surf and Safari at the Goss from 7:30 to 10. Saturday will be the Veterans Day program at 10:30. And that's all that I have. Government Affairs.
That's tomorrow morning.
At 7:30.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else? I have one thing just that I would share with the commissioners is that last week I did meet with hopefully all the parties involved on the 25th of November. The Jordan Mack Calf Show will be held out at the Extension Building, Extension Facility, and last year, the reason that I got on top of this is last year I was in Sioux Falls. I got a call that there was a real issue, real problem, and there was.
Parking.
There were 250 calves, and every calf arrived in a 40-foot, no, it's a gooseneck stock trailer with a dually pickup. And of course there was hockey games going on at the same time, and hockey kids, you know, the mites and the little guys and the little gals, and dually pickups and hockey moms, all that stuff, they don't mix. It's not a good deal. So I was able to get the sheriff's, someone from the city police, fire department, park and rec, anybody involved in it together. We sat down and we tried to put together a plan. And I'll just pass around. Chip at the fire department just kind of drew up a plan. Those are all trailers. If we could get them parked in there directly, all of those, just take a look at that.
Are you going to have parking attendants? Because
yes, we are. We are going to have
Funny you mentioned that.
Valet, I mean,
we are going to have parking to have, and I think I just
Brett.
lost it now. I'll show you after the meeting. But anyway, you put 250. I mean, we got everything just packed, just filled. But we're going to have to get some help from whomever to help park those things. And I've got a request into the Chamber Ag Committee, and I know there was a suggestion about the youth at
Police Department Explorer program.
And we're not going to subject those poor kids to that because the chief of police, Tim Toomey was there, and he said they won't even listen to us. Why would they listen to a high school kid, you know?
Maybe a parking fee.
Well,
maybe a foot fee for a trailer.
We suggested that too, but then someone spoke up immediately, and they were right. You know, we don't charge for parking during the farm show or any of the other gun show or any other events. So, but it's a problem. But we're on top of it. We're going to get it done one way or another, and hopefully, not everyone will be happy. I can assure you that. But
Well, there is additional parking out there now with where the Sun Chase building used to be. So hopefully that should help.
Yeah, wait till you see this diagram that he drew up. That's filled.
Sure it is.
Everything is filled. That 250 gooseneck trailers takes up a lot of room, I'll tell you that. Anything else for the open? I have two requests for executive session. One from Mr. Sutton, or Sutton. Sadler. Satterley, whatever his name is today, Satterley, and one from Brad, correct? One is in reference to contract negotiations, and the other one is personnel. Is that right, Brad?
I will make a motion that we go into executive
So that would be
session.
number, let's get the numbers down here first. One would be number 1,
Go ahead. I don't.
and the other would be number 3.
4.
Number 4, all right, number 4. Number 1 and number 4. All right, we have a motion to go into executive session by Hatton, a second by Van Duzen. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are in executive session.
You know, if you see a 16-foot